Okay, so today we're going to talk about graphing piecewise functions. And the important part about this is we've really talked a lot about functions so far. Like functions take inputs and they go to outputs. And we've now done all the different operations with them, such as add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and now finally compose. So we've had a lot of different operations. But the big focus now is we're going to really focus on graphing. Like what do these things look like on two-dimensional planes? And so where x is your inputs and y is your outputs. And so we'll look at that today with piecewise functions. Let's look at a couple examples. Okay, so this would be a normal piecewise function problem. Again, you can tell this is a piecewise function because it has two functions and has rules when you plug which input into which. You can graph any function by making an XY chart. So that's kind of how we're going to start. The key to this is realizing when you can use what numbers. And so for this, our breaking point is 2. And so here's my recommendation. You want to put 2 in the middle and then pick some points above and some points below so you get an idea of what the graph would look like. So I'm going to pick 1 and 0 and 3 and 4. Now there's one more important point about 2. Since this is the number it breaks at, technically we got to go like really close to 2 on both sides. So for this number and only this number, I kind of extend my chart. And then we're going to deal with what I call the open dot. It's not a real point, it's just a point that the line's going to get closer to. And we'll see in a second what that kind of looks like. So let's fill in our XY chart. This part's going to be pretty easy. So 0, if I think which function will 0 fit into, well, it's going to go into the top function because 0 is less than 2. When I plug in 0 there, I should get negative 2 times 0 minus 1, which would be negative 1. When we plug in 1 into the function, we would plug it into this top function again because 1 is less than 2. And I would get negative 2 minus 1, so that would be negative 3. When I look at 2, 2 should go into the top function. So when we plug it into the top function, we're going to get negative 4 minus 1, which is negative 5. That's the real point. Now, the open dot point, so this is not a real point, but we need to get really close to this equation here. So we are going to plug it in to the bottom one also. So the only one that gets plugged into both is this number right here, which I call the breaking point. You throw it in there, you get negative 2 plus 4, so that's 2. Now we're going to throw 3, and we go, okay, which equation does 3 go into? 3 would go into this bottom equation. So 3 goes into the bottom equation. It would give you negative 3 plus 4, which would be 1. And then 4 obviously would go into that bottom equation again because it's greater than 2, and that would give you 0. Now let's see how this thing graphs. So we just plot the points like normal. 0, negative 1, 1, negative 3, 2, negative 5, 3, 1, and 4, 0. Now we're going to plot the open dot, and the open dot is at 2, 2. Okay? Again, that point's not real, it's just to help us know where the line is going. Now this line starts at 2 and doesn't really start at 2, and it keeps following that, so we're just going to kind of draw it through. This one would keep going from up here, so we would stop here and go back this way. And there's our graph. Again, you just make an input and output chart because that's how you graph everything. You find the inputs and you find the outputs. The only thing that's weird is we have this breaking point, and you can kind of see this gap here for the piecewise, where you kind of need to do another point. I'm going to do one more example of this. Again, for this function, I also want to start out by making an XY chart. This one's going to be a little bit bigger since it's got 3 graphs, so it has multiple breaking points. When you look at where it kind of transitions, the numbers it transitions at is -2 and +2. So we're going to make sure those things are included. So I want -2 and +2. We'll fill in all the points in between. So it'll be -1, 0, 1. Let's go 1 above that and 1 below that. You don't really need to pick this many points generally, but when it has 3, we got to pick a little bit more. I'm going to highlight the open dot ones. So this is an open dot one, so we're going to need a second point. And this, we're going to need a second point. Everything else will just need 1, so we'll just kind of throw them in. -3, which function would -3 go into? Well, that is less than 2, so it goes into the top one. And this function, if you remember before when we talked about it, was if it just says -4, we don't have anything to plug in, so it's always -4. 2, -2 is equal to -2, so it goes in this one, so that'd be -4. But since that's a breaking point, I also want to throw it into this equation and put it as an open dot. So that would go into -2 minus 2 would be -4. Okay, we'll see how that kind of works in a second if it's the same. The next one we are going to do is -1. -1 would fit into this because -1 is between -2 and so we get -3. 0 again would fit into that one, so you'd get -2. 1 would again fit in this one, so you'd get -1. 2 would fit into this bottom one, and if you plugged into this bottom one, you get -2 times 2 plus 4, so you get 0. And if you, again, so 2 would fit into this one because it has an equal, but again, it's this breaking point, so I also wanted to plug into here, so that's 0. That's kind of nice. And then 3 would go into this bottom one right here, so we plug in 3, and I get -6 plus 4, that's -2. Okay, now again, we just plot our points, so -3, -4, -2, -4, and that was my open dot, but my open dot was at the same spot, so I don't have to worry about that. Okay, then we go here, and here, and then here, and then here, and again, that's my open dot, so I don't have to worry. If your open dot is the same number as this one, you don't have to put an open dot, which is kind of nice. And then 3, -2. And we just graph this. And there's my piecewise function. And this time you can kind of see everything's connected. Again, for all these piecewise functions, you want to make an XY chart. And then you want to pick points that are around these breaking points so you can kind of see what the graph is doing. Let me know if you have any questions.